Chapter 2, verses 11 and 12 in 1 Peter. It's all right. You only get so many of those, you know. Then you have to clean the chalkboards or something afterwards. Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from the passions of the flesh, which wage war against your soul. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. Peter is beginning his practical summary with a passionate expression. Brethren, I urge you, I beseech you. He's very, very intense here, and gives us he's giving us a warning, really. And he is telling us that in light of everything that we are as God's children that we looked at last time, in light of our roles as living stones in a building, metaphorically speaking, that will never be destroyed, in light of all of those things, in light of being a royal priesthood and a chosen race and a holy nation and so forth, our walk has to match who we are. Our earthly behavior has to square with those blessings, with those benefits, with those character descriptions of us. You've heard before the statement, others may, you cannot. Right? And that applies to a lot of things. If you're a member of the royal family, there's lots of things that others may do that you cannot. Depending upon your status and station in life. Others may, you cannot. Same thing is true as a believer. For unbelievers, this world is a playground. That's all it is. This world is a playground where sin and the flesh are free to romp around and just be wild. And we see it all the time. But for believers, it's not a playground, it's a battleground, isn't it? It is the place where we wage war against lusts that are waging war against our souls. And we cannot allow ourselves to get bogged down in sin, or for that matter, we cannot allow ourselves to be incapacitated by guilt. We can't. Because there are things that God requires of us. And He mentions these things here. We have to keep our conduct honorable. Why? Why is it important for us to keep our conduct honorable? What's he saying? It's right there in your text. Keep your conduct honorable. Why? Right. See, they're going to want to speak against you as an evildoer. They're going to want to accuse you of a variety of things. And not necessarily, I don't think necessarily it's limiting that just to being accused of being worldly, like they are. But they're watching. So believe me, they're watching for that. There are people that know that you're a believer, and those people are very, very much interested in seeing you fail. Right? We know people, don't we, that are just that way. They would just as soon that, we go off the edge. What does that provide for them if that happens? Excuses. In what form? But yet you do such and such. So who are you to say anything to me when you're doing thus and so? Right? What else? What else does our failure provide for the world? Good. Proof in their minds, proof, quote unquote, that we don't have the answer. Oh, sure. Enjoyment. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how to ask this question. Well, never mind. It doesn't apply. It doesn't apply. What else? What else does our failure provide for the world? Yes, in their minds, proof that we don't have the answers, opportunity to accuse us of being hypocritical, some twisted sense of pleasure. What else, Jerry? Yeah, yeah, the hypocrisy card, sure. But it also provides them with an excuse, doesn't it? Well, if this person has done this, and they're supposed to be this great Christian, then I guess it's okay for me to do this. Is there anything else? What else does it provide? Yeah, very important. hmm Uh, it, 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 it definitely provides them reason why following Jesus doesn't work. Because here's all these people who profess to follow Jesus, and look at all of their flaws, and look at what they're doing, and they're certainly not following X, Y, or Z, so it really isn't as big a deal as everybody thinks that it is. I'll never forget the story that is related with regards to Gandhi. And they asked Gandhi why he wouldn't be a Christian. And he says, you show me somebody who's a Christian who's living the tenets of Christianity, and I'll think about it. hmm Yes. Right. Right. Very good point. Very good point. They totally have no concept of what grace is, because we know that we are human beings, and that's not an excuse for us. But we do know that in our weakness and in our flesh, there are times when we are going to mess up. Sure, we know that. There is no perfection on this side of eternity. We know that. Even the Apostle Paul wrestled with these things. Jerry mentioned Romans chapter 6, but look at Romans chapter 7. The things that I want to do, I don't do, and the things that I do are the things that I end up not doing. Oh, wretched man that I am. Paul was distraught with that pull of the flesh. So yeah, there's that. And then and God in his wonderful providence provides grace for us. So how do we then prevent, or not prevent, how do we present grace to someone who has not understood it, not experienced it, and yet is the first person to, point out the log in our eyes? How do we help them understand grace without it sounding like we're making excuses for ourselves? Because that's how it can sound, right? Oh, well, God is gracious and God forgives. Well, yeah, then in the back of their mind, they're thinking, okay, then all I need to do in many cases is I just need to go to confession. I need to confess my sin this week, and I can go out and live like the devil the rest of the week, and then just come back in and get my spiritual bath. And the cycle continues and continues and continues, and I can take advantage of this thing called grace. And that's where Romans 6 comes in, where Paul says, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? And the Greek text says meganoito, which is a very, very loud, no way. Translated, God forbid. Sure. hmm Haven't we haven't we been guilty of boy, we got to get that fixed. That's going to drive me nuts on a Sunday morning if that thing continues to flicker like that. Um, haven't we made I want to say this carefully. Thank you. Yeah, that's right. Have we done a poor job of describing what it means to be a follower of Jesus in some circles? Have we presented it in such a way that it seems unattainable, except to a select few? Example: if you are a Christian, you will look like this. You will sound like this. You will listen to only these things. You will read only this version. You will, and you won't X, Y, Z, A, B, C, and so on and so on. And that is what a Christian looks like. We've done that. Thankfully, not so much anymore, but a few decades ago, that was our standard. And that standard was no better than the Pharisees. Right? I mean, we understand that. Most of us have come out of that. So we understand how that has been an epic fail. And how it's so culturally blinded. Because if I go to a different country and I don't wear a three-piece suit, does that make me not a Christian? Because I said over here I had to, coat and tie. Even if I was on a school bus. Bus ministry, right? You can't be on a bus ministry, Jim, if you don't have your tie on. Yeah. So, Yeah. Yep. So yes, there are ways in which we have presented things that have done damage. How should we present being a Christian? Again, we go back to the hippie era. I'll call it the hippie era, the Jesus movement, where we sit around the campfire and we sing, "They will know we are Christians by our love, right? Well, yeah, they'll know by our love, not necessarily by how we look. And that's another rabbit trail that we could go down sometime, and we won't. But there it is. There it is. Yep. There it is. Oh my, how it has changed from the first century church when we had Epicurus who would say, "Behold how they love each other," to, "I'm going to judge you because you walked through the door in blue jeans and you didn't have a coat and tie on." Oh, how it's changed. And not necessarily for the better. But still, Peter reiterates these things, and he says, "Know these things. Beloved, I urge you." I urge you how? As what? What's he say there in the verse? As strangers and pilgrims. All right, now we expect John Wayne to jump out, don't we? All right, pilgrim. Strangers and pilgrims. Strangers, okay, but I like the old word aliens. I mean, we can relate to that a little bit more. Aliens. We're weird. We're supposed to be weird. The Bible calls us a peculiar people. Did you know that, Max? We're supposed to be weird. I urge you as aliens, as pilgrims, sojourners. What's true about those terms? Aliens and strangers, aliens and pilgrims. Wherever they are, that's not their home. They are not deeply entrenched there. They are just a passing through, as the old song says. So sure, that's how we're supposed to portray ourselves. We're just passing through. This is temporary. This is temporary, and yes, we need to live here, and that's fine. And I'm certainly not advocating that we do some kind of a commune lifestyle or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying when push comes to shove, the deeper thought, the deeper mentality of our lives is that this is temporary. This is temporary. This is test preparation. We're studying for the final exam. We're passing through, and so as we are passing through, we need to behave a certain way so that they will do what? They'll be able to observe our lifestyle, and they won't have cause to point the finger at us and say, aha, see, they're not so perfect. I can't help but wonder if part of the accusation of being perfect is something that we bring upon ourselves sometimes. That we portray being a Christian as someone who has it all together all the time. We know that's not true. That's it. There it is, right there. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And Cliff has a very good point there, in saying that we're judged all the time. We are going to be judged all the time. Right, wrong is regardless. It's not if, it's when. But what matters is, do we give them cause to judge us, or or is the matter of our judgment coming across because light has exposed darkness? In other words, the way you live your life makes other people feel guilty. And that's why they don't invite you to the beer parties and to the poker tournaments and bingo and whatever else there is out there. I'm sorry, I touched a nerve. Gloria plays bingo. I know that's what it is, but it's okay. It's all right. We're still praying. We are. Yep. I saw a hand up somewhere. Yep. Dan? Sure. Sure. Yep. I remember I was I was a freshman in high school, and my guidance counselor, her name was Mrs. Johnson. She was one of these liberal feminazis before the term was even known. As a matter of fact, she made comment to us in class one day that she would prefer her husband change his name to her name because she liked her name better. That tells you. But I remember her calling me into her office one time and directly saying to me, you think that you're better than everybody else because you're a Christian. And you need to not take yourself so seriously. That was now keep in mind, this was back 40 years ago when you could get away with saying stuff like that. Okay? I mean, nowadays I could easily go out and I could say, I feel threatened. And I'd have everybody and his brother defending me. Yes, I need to find a safe place. I don't feel safe here. Blah, 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 blah. Okay? But yeah, back then you could get away with that. I mean, back then you got picked on, you got teased, and you had to live with it. Toughen up a little bit. But I, and I went home in tears. Yes, I was a high school boy who cried. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. We'll share tears one of these days, Jerry. You and me, bud. But it, and I guess the reason that I felt the way that I did was because she was wrong. I didn't feel like I was better than anybody else, and I didn't feel like I portrayed myself as looking down my nose at anybody else. I just tried to survive in high school. That's it. Yes. Mm-hmm. That's it. It is, and it is the, and it in that very element, Alden, is exactly what has consistently been the case throughout history. Light exposes darkness, and light doesn't even have to try, because light, by its very nature, exposes darkness. And all you have to do is just live your life. You don't have to go in and say, clean up your mouth. I don't like that kind of language. Jesus doesn't appreciate. No, you'll get laughed out of town, okay? You don't have to say a word. All you got to do is just be the light. They'll hate you for it. Because that's exactly what it does. Light exposes darkness. Why is it we have kids that come to faith in Jesus, they get serious about living their life, they're consistent, and before too long, they come to us with a broken heart saying, all of my friends have abandoned me. People don't want to hang around me. I don't get invited to do such and such. You ever had to raise a high school kid that way? I can't tell you the nights when my daughters would be at home on a Friday night crying their eyes out because all of their quote-unquote friends were out doing things and they didn't get invited. And in a couple of cases, overhearing something, they would say, oh, you wouldn't want to come. What makes them say that? Yeah, because they know it's wrong. Deep down, they know it's wrong. They don't want anybody exposing. So, what do if you hide your deeds in darkness? You get rid of the light. You ostracize the light. You isolate the light. You stay away from the light. And if that means you have a friend who all of a sudden has the light, then you just nix that friendship. Say that one more time. Oh yes, absolutely, and yes, and that's certainly a given. I mean, it does work the other way, where that you as the light, you have to be able to be strong enough to be able to resist those things and to understand that there is going to come a point in time where you need to walk away from that because that, I mean, the darkness will drag you down. It will drag you down. Yep. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, I mean, you're right on. I mean, you always, I mean, every day we go into battle. Every day we go into battle. And you do not know what's going to come around the corner every single day. Your battlefield may be unique to you, but it's there every day. You know, whether it's at school, whether it's at work, whether it's, you know, whoever you interact with, driving down the street and some ninny cuts you off. There you go. Didn't they make a video about you and this other woman in a parking lot one time? Yeah, never mind. Russ. Yeah, right. Hmm. Right. Yes. Hmm. 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 Yep. Very true. You know, a couple of weeks ago when we had the teenagers up here with the Young Life group, I mean, they gave a good testimony, and a couple of them came right out and said, "This is, you know, I mean, I lost my friends, but I found new friends." You know, and so that's an important part of it. Four suggestions for living a kind of life that God requires that He gives us here. First of all, He says, live a clean life. Live a clean life. Don't think for a moment that it makes no difference to unbelievers how we live as Christians. It does, because again, as we've all talked about, we are being watched. We live our faith before a watching world. We do. And so he's saying, abstain from fleshly lusts in order to get their attention and prove that what we believe really does work. It really does. And we don't know how many people are watching us. You just don't know who's watching or where. Again, there is the reality that for some people, they determine the truth of our message on the basis of how we live it. Yes, yes. I'm watching him to see if what he's saying is the real deal. Or has he just bought into a lie and he's another religious nut? Absolutely. Um, Number two, leave no room for slander. No room for slander. Plato was told that a certain man had begun making slanderous comments about him, and Plato's response was, "I will live in such a way that no one will believe what he says." And that happens to us. People will slander us. People will say certain things about us. And our first response is to go right out and to say, "Well, that's not true, and I can prove it." And oftentimes the best thing you can do is tell yourself, you know what, the people who really know you, they're not going to believe that. Because they know the difference. They see the difference. So the most convincing defense in many cases is a silent integrity that works in and of itself to deny slanderous charges. Thirdly, do good deeds among unbelievers. Do good deeds among unbelievers. It's easy for us as Christians to have tunnel vision and do good deeds to each other. And we do. We help each other a lot. First thing that comes to mind is, when someone's sick, we bring meals. We can do that, and we do it very well. But that's an in-house thing, isn't it? If you're driving along and you see somebody with a flat tire, we don't roll the window down and say, "Hey, you with a flat tire, are you a Christian? If you are, I'll stop and help you. If not, well, sucks to be you." You keep right on driving, right? I don't know, maybe you do that, but see, this is what makes the story of the Good Samaritan so compelling. The merciful deeds were done on behalf of a complete stranger. Complete stranger. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You better believe it. Yeah, they hated each other. Yep. Number 4, never forget we are being watched. They are watching to see if what we say we believe is true in our lives. Warren Wiersbe, I'm going to read this story here. He gives a story about the summer of 1805. He says, a number of Indian chiefs and warriors met in council at Buffalo Creek, New York, to hear a presentation of the Christian message by a Mr. Cram from the Boston Missionary Society. And after the message, a response was given by Red Jacket, one of the leading chiefs. And among other things, he said, "Brother, we are told that you have been preaching to the white people in this place. These people are our neighbors. We are acquainted with them. We will wait a little while and see what effects your preaching has upon them. If we find it does them good, makes them honest and less disposed to cheat Indians, we will then consider again what you have said." Pretty wise. That's probably why he was chief, right? So yeah, important things all along the way. Father in heaven, we thank you for even despite the fact that at times we are our own worst enemy, and we focus on our failures rather than your rescues, you are all-powerful, and you have plans for our good. So remind us of our position in Christ, and renew our spirits with the realization that we indeed are your possession, that people may see Christ in us, the hope of glory. In Jesus' name.